Hello students, welcome to the Pole Science of Class 12 Arts, and today we will discuss about the last part of the topic shark. Previously we read about Indian shark, and today we will start with some interesting facts related to the organization of shark, and we would be heading towards the conclusion part. So let us proceed then. Related to some interesting facts about shark, the combined economy of shark is the third largest in the world in terms of GDP. Clear? That means, as we know, that the shark is the largest inter-organizational unit because of its population. Combining 8 nations, it is above 2 billion. But in terms of GDP also, the shark is the third largest in the world. That means, as per the inter-organizational structure, it is the third largest in terms of GDP. After that, India offers a great source of potential investment in terms of trade and commerce, as it is the sole shark member to be sharing borders with all 6 members via land or sea. And one more interesting fact about shark is that India, as we have read earlier also in the earlier topic, that India is contributing 70% for the development and promotion of shark. And apart from that, India is also having borders with all the member states, either through the land or through the medium of sea. Let us look at the member nations. India is sharing borders with Bhutan, Bangladesh, the Maldives, then Afghanistan, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Excluding Maldives, it is sharing borders with each of these member states, either through sea or either through the land. Clear? If Indo-Pak relations improve, many shark nations could benefit from it by improved trade relations and creation of better export markets. One more important thing is that, as you can see, that in the member of shark, both India and Pakistan are there. So in that way, what happens, there is a conflict between India and Pakistan relating to the issue of Kashmir, which is not solved till 70 years, till both of the countries got independence. Till 1947 till date, the issue of Kashmir has not been resolved. So in that way, if suppose we might assume that if India and relations of India and Pakistan improve someday, then what will be the advantage? Many shark nations could benefit from it by improved trade relations and creation of better export markets. That means, due to the conflict of India and Pakistan, the other member countries, namely Sri Lanka, Maldives and the other member countries, they are not having full benefits as because of the conflict, because the other 6 countries cannot have a free trade relations with both the countries at a time, and moreover they don't have that options of better export markets. If suppose that India and Pakistan have solved their issues, after that all these 8 countries will be able to do exports, and they will try to establish markets from where there will be better trading options for them, and better export markets can also be created. After that, India must come to the front and initiate measures to encourage nations to prove their mettle and make the Shark Summit a meaningful affair, which India is doing also, because as India is the head, or you can say that Shark is headed by India, so it is always expected that a country who is contributing almost 70% of the monetary funds for the promotion and development of shark, that country should always come forward and take initiative and steps so that whatever the meetings and conferences are held between the 8 member countries, that can be fruitful in some way or the other. Clear? So these were some of the interesting facts about the organization SHARC, starting from, in terms of GDP, it is the third largest in the world. Then India offers a great source of potential investment by investing almost 70%. And apart from that, out of 8 countries, excluding India and Maldives, it share its borders with all the 6 countries via land or via the water ways. After that, one more important thing was there, that if India and Pakistan's problem could be solved, then it would have an environment where all the member countries, that are 8 in number, can freely establish trade relations with each other and also look in for better export markets within their area and outside also. And after that, the last and the foremost important thing was mentioned, according to which India must, as the highest contributor or as the main initiation that India is taking, being the leader of SHARC, it should always come forward and take such steps and initiatives through which it can lead SHARC to the as a power of a global one. Whatever the meetings and conferences are held, that can be done in a more meaningful and fruitful way. Now the last part related to SHARC is the conclusion. So in the conclusion part, what can we see? Number one is that the SHARC balance sheet of success is very limited to adoption of several conventions. We have gone through 4 conventions related to the reduction of or stopping of trafficking of women and children, then promotion on welfare of children, then stopping criminal offences and terrorism activities, and last but not the least, stopping the uses of drugs. So we have seen that the SHARC balance sheet of success is very much limited to adoption of several conventions. That means they have adopted you can say they have adopted very few conventions through which the success of SHARC cannot be done to an unlimited way, because they have included few points or few arrangements to the success. That's why their success is also become limited in that way. There have been also breakthroughs in the forms of agreement forming SAPTA and SAFTA, but their success at operational is still expected. They have done, if we tell about their success, the first point was about the limitations or the failures, because they were not successful in bringing many conventions. They have brought few conventions, which has gave them limited success. But breakthrough has been done, and breakthrough in the form of what? They have created SAFTA, preferential trade agreement, and SAFTA also, South Asian Free Trade Area. But they have created this within their own jurisdiction, that means between their own member countries, and this SAFTA and SAFTA has not been extended to the outer spheres, that means to the external countries or to the countries who are not the members. So in this way, its success has been minimized to the area of their member countries also only, but their success of SAFTA and SAFTA have not reached to the global scenario. Then special economic zones and export promotion zones should be created in all member countries to make trading easier and smooth the relations between the South Asian nations. And last but not the least, in the conclusion part, it is been advised that 2 things should be created in every member countries, that are 8 in number. So 2 things should be formed. Number 1 is special economic zones, that means related to the monetary, related to the upliftment and development of economy of that particular country. Special economic zones should be created. Along with that, export promotion zones should also be created. Apart from creating special economic zones, export promotion zones, because if special economic zones will help to lead to the development of the country related to its finance and economy, and export promotion zones will help to make the trade more easier and smoother. So if these two things are set up in every member countries, that is special economic zones SEZs and export promotion zones EPZ, then these two institution, if these are formed, it will make trading easier and smoother between all these member countries, and also between the other South Asian nations also, whoever are there who are not the member countries, that should work for the development of that particular South Asian nations also, and for the member countries of SAARC also. So with this we have come to the end of the topic SAARC. And related to the topic of SAARC, we started from the member countries, then we read about the full form, then we read about the initiative taken by the Bangladeshi President Ziaur Rahman, then we read about the aims of SAARC, then we also read about what were the reasons for the formation of SAARC, then its history, what led to the formation of SAARC. Then we read about primary objectives and secondary objectives. Then we also read about the principles of SAARC and how the organizational and structure of SAARC is like. It consists of a council of ministers, standing committee, programming committee, technical committee, and last but not the least, the most hierarchical order is the secretariat. And about secretariat, we read about the secretariat elaborately, having its headquarters in Kathmandu. Then moving on to the areas of cooperation, then we also read about the conventions or arrangements of SAARC. Then we read about the success of SAARC and as well as the failures of SAARC. Then we read about India and its position in the SAARC, which was almost more than half, because India is investing almost 70% of its financial contributions. Then we read about some of the interesting facts about SAARC, and lastly we concluded the part of SAARC with 3 points, according to which the SAARC balance sheet of success, that means the success of SAARC is limited because they have introduced only limited arrangements, which has led to the limited success of SAARC. Then we read about the breakthrough through two organizations, two agreements, namely SAPTA and SAFTA. Through this they have achieved success, but they have not achieved success at the global level. They have only achieved success in their own, between their member countries level. And number 3 and the last important point was about the formation of special economic zones and export promotion zones should be set up in each and every member countries, which is 8 in number. So if special economic zones and export promotion zones are set up, it will actually do what? It will do wonders, because if special economic zones and export economic zones, promotion zones are created, that through that trading can be done very smoothly and easily between all these member countries, and as well as it will benefit the member countries of the SAARC also, and it will also benefit the other South Asian countries also. So I hope that whatever the points we have read and understand about the topic SAARC, it is now clear to you. So with this I will wind up today's topic. Thank you.